So, the Enneagram and relationships, I'm going to cover 3 important lessons. And let's start with the first one. Relationships have 3 components to them. Are we being heartful? Are we being compassionate? Are we really listening to the other person? Are we really in touch with our own emotions, our own sensations, our own sounds in the relationship, our own tastes in the relationship? And are we also paying attention to those senses in the other person? Are we being heartful? So I might say, Ryan, when we're having this conversation, what's the taste in your mouth? What's your experience? Tell me about your feelings. So that's a sense of relatedness, sense of heartfulness. The second one is mindfulness. Are we giving our full attention to our relationships? A simple tip to know whether you're giving your full attention to somebody is, can you repeat what they've just said? The third piece is spaciousness. And what do I mean by spaciousness? It's honoring that you're an individual and I am too. The sense of autonomy. So are we not projecting our stuff onto the other person? Are we owning our own stuff and honoring the independence and interdependence in the relationship? So tip number 1 for relationships in the Enneagram are we being spacious, which is the 8, 9, and 1? Are we being heartful, which is the 2, 3, and 4? And are we being mindful, which is the 5, 6, and 7? The second key component in relationships as it relates to the Enneagram is something that we talked about in the Awakened Company. And it's the difference between role and relationship. Role and relatedness, rather. Role is, what's your job? What's your function? For example, I'm a colleague, I'm a leader, and the relatedness should be teased out in terms of our relationships. And that is, how are we connected? And getting back to the first point informs us in terms of, are we being spacious, heartful, and mindful? So tease out in your relationships, what are the roles and what's the relatedness? And how do you honor those? The third one is something Russ and I talk about all of the time, is being aware of the Hornevian groups. So are we being emotionally real, positive, and competent in our relationships? So emotional realness, that's the types 4, 6, and 8. The competency types are the 1, 3, and 5, and the positive outlook groups are the 2, 7, and 9. So for example, with Russ and I, we have emotional realness, which is me as an 8. He's competency as a 5. So 1, 3, 5 are competency. So we try to bring in positivity to our relationships. How are we being positive with each other? So once you identify your type and in relationship with the other person, what's their type, you know what missing piece to bring in to make the relationship more wholesome. So 3 things, 3 quick tips. Number 1, are we spacious? Are we heartful? Are we mindful? Number 2, identifying the role and relatedness in our relationships. And the third one is, are we being competent, emotionally real, and positive in our relationships? And another thing to consider is just sensing the body, smelling what's here now, seeing what's here now, tasting what's here now, hearing what's here now, experiencing our sit bones and our body. So just an invitation to really take in our senses in relationship, and that brings us more into the present moment. So some hints on relationships.